Go, back up. Back up. Back up. You can be there, just back up.
I am not moving. We are standing ground.
You're ready to face that.
I wonder why, because you guys build dossiers on people.
Hey guys, wow, you step onto the soft sand of Seattle's most beloved beach park. Seagulls cry overhead, kids are chasing frisbees, someone's grilling elotes nearby. The breeze is perfect, the kind of summer air that makes you believe for a moment that everything's going to be okay. And then it shifts. SUVs with blacked out windows edge into the parking lot. You hear radios crackling, dogs barking. It takes seconds. ICE agents flood the boardwalk like it's a war zone. They've got zip ties, body cams, rifles. You blink, someone screams. You weren't supposed to see this. They weren't supposed to be here. This wasn't supposed to happen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and your local time in the comments. I want to know where you're watching this from. And let's go on the journey of today's story together. Because right now, you're standing 10 feet away as a teenage boy is slammed against a food truck and cuffed. You try not to stare, try to rationalize. But he was serving tacos 30 seconds ago. You saw it. You watched his mother wave to him from a lawn chair just before two agents pulled her up by the elbows and dragged her toward the grass. No warnings, no warrants shown. Just a list of suspected non-citizens they claim to be following, but that list is invisible. And the faces being taken don't look random. They look like your neighbors. Hours later, ICE will say this was a routine sweep, that they were responding to gang presence, even though no one here saw a weapon besides the ones carried by agents. No threats were made, no violence was reported. But bodies are in vans now. Families are shattered. A quinceañera canceled. A man's wallet lies in the sand, still open to his bus pass. And in a strange twist of the day, an ICE spokesperson that evening posts a smiling selfie from the same beach. Another one for the books, she writes. It sparks outrage, but also silence. You used to come to this park with your cousins. You'd ride bikes past the driftwood, drink Jarritos in the shade, and laugh at the people braving the cold Pacific water. It was never fancy, just familiar. Immigrant families claimed this beach like a sanctuary, like it was the one place where everyone could be seen without judgment. On Sundays, tamales were sold from the trunks of cars. Mariachi music blended with the ocean wind. That's why it hits harder when you realize this isn't random. The day before the raid, someone from ICE's Seattle field office issued a memo calling for high visibility enforcement, citing increased unauthorized gatherings in urban green spaces. It didn't name the park, but activists saw it coming. Groups like La Resistencia and the ACLU flagged patterns of racialized surveillance in public areas, especially during cultural events. Still, no one expected a full deployment like this. Witnesses say the agents set up at 6 a.m., waiting by bathrooms and picnic shelters. Dressed to blend in, they watched, noted plates, tracked behavior. A vendor from Oaxaca said she was questioned about her movement patterns. She was selling bottled water. ICE, when pressed, claimed this was a proactive response to community complaints. But no official complaint was logged with the city. In fact, several local residents had written glowing reviews about the park's multicultural vibe just weeks earlier. The real question is, who complained? Or was that just part of the story told afterward? Meanwhile, a drone flew overhead, circling every 12 minutes. A child asked if it was for fireworks. His father said nothing, just pulled him closer. The raid didn't just remove people, it erased safety. Parents stopped letting their kids bike to the park. Vendors disappeared. Even the birds seemed quieter in the weeks that followed. A strange fact buried in an ICE press release. The agency claimed to have intercepted 3 potential visa overstays with prior civil citations. That's their justification. But for the 127 others, no charges were filed. No legal paperwork shown. Just one truth. A park became a net, and everyone was caught in it. You hear the bells before you see her. A small cart painted in faded pastels rolling across the edge of the boardwalk. She's selling paletas mango, coconut, tamarind. Her name is Teresa Jimenez, And this is her 5th summer working Seattle's beach park. She's 52, undocumented, but known and loved in the neighborhood. Her grandkids call her Abuela de los Helados. Her regulars pay double sometimes just to help her keep going. You're walking toward her when it happens. An ICE agent, broad-shouldered, wearing a fishing hat, grabs her wrist mid-transaction. The child who was about to pay drops his dollar. Teresa gasps, then tries to hand over her permit, the laminated piece issued by the city's informal vendor registry. She's shaking. He doesn't look at it. They zip-tie her arms behind her back and push her into a lineup with 6 others. Her grandchild, about 6, stands screaming by the cart, holding a half-melted paleta. No one dares approach. You don't either, not because you don't care, but because the way the agents scan the crowd makes your stomach turn cold. Teresa doesn't resist, doesn't say a word. She just stares forward like she's somewhere else. Later, a bystander will post a photo of her shoes, one sandal fallen off, toes in the sand. That image circulates online, a symbol of how easily dignity can be stripped. Her arrest wasn't based on any warrant. ICE will later say she fit the profile of a target. No further explanation. That phrase, fit the profile, says more than it hides. In the holding van, Teresa tells another detainee she still has a Lotte mix left at home, that she hopes her cart won't be stolen. She doesn't know her arrest will cause her daughter to miss a work shift, get docked pay, and lose her job at the nursing home. She doesn't know the cart will be taken by city workers, or that the 6-year-old will be sent home with a neighbor who barely knows him. This isn't just a story of detention. It's the story of what happens when a grandmother becomes collateral in a political performance. You start digging. You want answers, real ones. So you head to TRAC, the data archive out of Syracuse University that tracks ICE enforcement, and what you find stops you cold. In King County, Washington, where Seattle sits, non-criminal immigration arrests by ICE spiked by 86% over the last fiscal year. Most of the individuals picked up, according to TRAC, had no criminal convictions at all, not even minor traffic offenses. They were parents, vendors, students, landscapers, dishwashers, just people living, surviving, contributing. The ICE spokesperson, when pressed by the Seattle Times, doubled down. We target individuals based on threat levels, he insisted, not on ethnicity or appearance. But the numbers tell another story. Only 14% of those detained in Seattle Beach Park that day had any form of prior infraction, and even those were mostly civil, like overstayed visas or missed court dates. None were tied to violent crime. And then there's the internal email, leaked to the Marshall Project, where a field agent jokes, Seattle Beach feels like shooting fish in a barrel. Day labor central. It's sickening. But it also explains the operation's timing and placement. Dig deeper and you'll find ICE's 287G agreements programs allowing local law enforcement to collaborate with federal immigration officers have expanded in nearby counties. Even though King County itself declared sanctuary status in 2019, that status doesn't prevent ICE from operating independently. It just forces them to do it more quietly, or in this case, more dramatically. Meanwhile, social media's version of the raid is fractured. Conservative blogs cheer the action, citing vague cartel fears, but no evidence was presented. None of the 133 detained were charged with gang affiliation. That part was a ghost, a justification created after the fact. Here's the weirdest piece, though. Buried in an unrelated ICE press release that same week, the agency boasts of seizing $150,000 worth of counterfeit Crocs in a port raid. Somehow that gets more coverage than the beach operation. Teresa's sandal? Worth less than $1. Her life? Apparently even less to those making these calls. You sit at your kitchen table, scrolling through endless comment threads, trying to make sense of the logic. It's a storm, people yelling past each other. On one side, the calls for security, for law, for order. On the other, pleas for compassion, for dignity, for nuance. The defenders of the raid use sharp language. Illegals shouldn't picnic while Americans suffer, one commenter writes under a New York Post article. Another, it's not a sanctuary, it's a loophole. ICE is doing its job. You want to dismiss them, but part of you wonders, is it possible that law enforcement sees their job as a moral calling? You read an op-ed in The Independent where a former ICE agent explains how he left the agency after 10 years. He says his first arrest made him sick. She looked like my mother. That was the moment I realized the law didn't always mean justice. The piece ends with a haunting line. We enforce the code, not the conscience. You flip over to the ACLU's most recent litigation still ongoing, challenging the Seattle raids as unconstitutional. They argue the detentions violate the Fourth Amendment. No probable cause, no individual suspicion. And yet the agents operate under internal memos that redefine what reasonable suspicion means. At the beach, suspicion meant brown skin, speaking Spanish, or carrying a cooler. But then someone posts a video taken that day from a bystander's phone. In it, an agent is caught asking a detained man, "What country are you from?" The man replies, "I'm from here." His accent is thick, but his papers are real. He's a citizen. He's also bruised from being thrown against the sand. ICE later releases him without apology. So you ask yourself, is this how safety is built? Through fear, through profiling, through efficiency that forgets humanity? Legal scholars are split. One camp argues, if you're undocumented, the law is clear. The other side asks, if the law is unjust, does following it still make you moral? And you sit between those truths, watching your neighbors disappear into unmarked vans. You drive past the park 2 weeks later. It's quiet, too quiet. The drum circles are gone, no smoke from the grill pits, no kids running barefoot over the dunes, just benches collecting dew and a vendor cart rusting behind a closed gate. You knock on Teresa's daughter's door. She's cautious, peers out from behind the curtain before opening. Her name is Daniela, and she looks older than 31. You ask gently, and she lets you in. She tells you about the days that followed the raid, how she scrambled to find her mother, how no one at the ICE field office would give a straight answer. They just said she was being processed, she whispers. Processed like a form, not a human. Daniela missed 2 shifts at the nursing home trying to get legal support. Her manager told her not to come back. With Teresa gone, the family's second income vanished. Daniela's youngest started wetting the bed again. Her oldest now stares out the window during mealtimes, waiting for an abuela who may never return. And it's not just them. Down the street you meet Miguel, a landscaper who lost 3 crew members that day. I can't take on jobs now, he says. We were booked for the summer. Now I just sit with a shovel in my truck. One of the crew, Jose, was saving to pay for his daughter's surgery in Mexico. He was detained too. The surgery was scheduled for July. It never happened. At the local school, attendance dropped 14% after the raid. Parents stopped sending their kids, fearing another roundup. The principal says ICE didn't contact them. They just came, she says, like it was a storm. And in the strangest ripple, the local food bank ran out of supplies for the first time in years. Volunteers link it back to families now too afraid to register, too invisible to help. This wasn't just about immigration enforcement. It was about shattering ecosystems, economic, emotional, human. And in the vacuum left behind, something colder grew. Not order, not safety, just silence. You sit on the sand where Teresa's cart once stood. The tide is higher today, pushing foam toward the grass. Around you, the park looks normal again. Joggers pass by. A dog digs near a lifeguard tower. From the outside, you wouldn't know what happened here. But now you know nothing here is neutral, not even the sand. That's when it hits you, the beach, this space, this public park. It was never just about leisure. For some, it was freedom. For others, a battlefield. And now, maybe it's both. You remember seeing a man that day. He was fishing off the pier as ICE agents stormed through. He didn't run, didn't blink, just lowered his rod, sat on the bench, and stared into the water. Later, someone told you his name was Jorge. He'd lost his brother to a raid in Texas the year before. They took him during his lunch break, he said. We never found out where. What's shocking is how quickly the country moves on. The news cycle swirls past. Immigration becomes a number, a headline, a talking point. But the sand still remembers the footprints. The child's dropped paleta, the sandal in the dirt. And here's a twist you didn't see coming. While Seattle was reckoning with the fallout, ICE's national office announced a social media campaign titled Enforce with Honor. It featured smiling officers, badge-heavy graphics, and the slogan, Protecting America's Future. You stare at the post. You compare it to the video you saw Teresa's terrified eyes, Miguel's shovel in his truck, Daniela folding laundry with one eye on the door. Who exactly are we protecting? Your friend, an immigration lawyer, once told you, justice isn't a location, it's a decision made daily by people who choose to see. And now you see. You see how language shapes power, how terms like illegals erase names, how phrases like routine operation mask trauma. You see how the idea of public safety has been hijacked not to protect the vulnerable, but to punish visibility. You stand up from the sand, brush off your jeans, and whisper, "They think the park is quiet now." But you remember. You close your browser and sit in stillness. You followed the facts, met the families, watched the videos. You've seen how justice wears two faces in this country, one smiling, one silent. And now comes the hardest part. What would you have done? If you'd been at the beach that morning, cooler in one hand, toddler in the other, would you have spoken up, filmed, hid, walked away? Would you have helped Teresa's grandchild? Or would fear have paralyzed you, like it did for most of the bystanders? That's the trap. When enforcement becomes spectacle, it turns witnesses into accomplices. The ICE agents know it. That's why they do it in daylight. That's why they choose the beach. They're not just arresting bodies. They're training the public to look away. But you're not looking away anymore. Maybe that's why this story found you. Not to shock you, not to ruin your afternoon, but to show you what happens when systems go unchecked. When the people behind the badges are allowed to define danger and everyone else is expected to nod along. You scroll through TRAC data again, and you realize the numbers don't scream, they whisper. Every non-criminal removal is a name unspoken. Every administrative hold is a grandmother who won't come home for dinner. The real cost of these raids isn't measured in deportations. It's measured in trust lost, families broken, communities scarred. And so here you are. You can share this video. You can talk to your city council. You can ask your local police department if they're working with ICE. You can volunteer with legal aid networks. You can refuse to look away the next time a park becomes a trap. Or you can do nothing. But now you can't say you didn't know. The story's yours now. Hold it gently. Pass it carefully. Because the next Teresa, she might live on your block. And maybe next time, it's your park. The waves roll in like they always do, soft, relentless, familiar. The sun dips lower, casting shadows across the boardwalk where everything changed. You can almost hear the bells of Teresa's cart if you close your eyes. The soft jingle, the scrape of the wheel, a child's laughter echoing behind it. But it's quieter now. Not just in sound, but in spirit. As if the park is holding its breath, waiting for the next story to unfold. You sit a little longer, letting the wind press against your skin, wrapping around the silence that follows a story like this. Because some truths don't end with credits. They echo, they settle in your chest, they stay. Maybe that's the point. Maybe justice begins not with headlines or handcuffs, but with remembering. Remembering the paleta that melted in the sun, the sandals in the sand, the man with the shovel sitting by his truck, the grandmother with her cart still full of ice. If you listen closely, you'll hear more than just waves. You'll hear questions. Who gets to feel safe? Who gets to stay? What does freedom look like if only some get to carry it? Take a breath. Let the story live in you not as guilt, but as a guide. And when the moment comes, because it will, when someone asks, "Did you know?" you'll answer honestly, "Yes, I knew."